Resilience is a mindset. It's not just about platforms that are resilient or fault tolerant. I want to build teams around here that are resilient in the way we think about markets so we can stay calm and collected and clear-minded during the most stressful of times.
Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter Hyde. My guest today is Chris Isaacson. Chris is the COO of Cboe Global Markets, a role he's had for 6.5 of his nearly 8.5 years with the company. Cboe is the leading exchange network for global derivatives, foreign exchange, digital asset, and securities trading solutions. In his role, Chris runs day-to-day operations for Cboe, including all of technology and operations, risk, information security, infrastructure, data and analytics, and project management. He recently added responsibilities for Cboe's global cash equities, FX clearing, and BIDS business lines. He joined Cboe in 2017 when the company acquired Bats Global Markets, a company for which he was a founding employee. Chris was the CIO of Bats, and he would take on the same role at Cboe prior to his current role. Chris, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Peter, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
The pleasure's mine. I've been looking forward to it. Well, maybe, Chris, we begin with an overview for those who may be less familiar with it, beyond what I've already provided into Cboe Global Markets. Can you provide an overview of the business in your own words, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So Cboe Global Markets, we operate 27 markets around the world in derivatives, cash equities, FX, and others that you've mentioned. We are the leading derivatives and securities network around the world. If you've heard of securities options, Cboe created options, listed options about 50 years ago. And that's really our primary business. Our biggest business is U.S. options, which have grown quite nicely. But we operate all these markets around the world and operate a 24/7 operation to support all these markets.
Can you talk a little bit about options versus the sort of equivalence to this within other securities and how this differs, just to provide a little bit more context, if you would?
Yeah, absolutely. So options, as I said, they were created about 52 years ago. So 1973, when listed options were created. Derivatives have been around for even longer than that. But derivatives were created, and including options, to reduce risk for people. So if they want to take, you can decide to buy a stock, and then you're going to benefit if it rises, or you're going to suffer if the price goes down. But with options, you get the option, but not the obligation to buy that security at a certain price or to sell at a certain price. So you pay a premium for that option, and then you get to benefit from that. At the simplest form, that's what options are about. So it's a way to participate in the upside or downside of a stock movement, or to limit your risk, but not have to pay and buy the entire security and hold that in your portfolio.
Yeah, good overview. Thank you so much for that. And I would love to have you provide a little more context of your role as Chief Operating Officer of the organization. Can you talk a little bit more about what that entails?
Yeah, as you said, I oversee the day-to-day operations of Cboe, and I've been here for about 8.5 years. That includes technology, operations, risk, data analytics, information securities, and other functions. And recently I oversee 4 business lines, so global equities, FX, clearing, and BIDS. So overseeing the day-to-day operations of the company as COO. Very technology-driven company. Half or more than half of our associates are technology and operations folks focused on operating and building these markets. And our purpose as a company is building trusted markets. And a big part of how we do that is through the use of technology and world-class operations to deliver tradable products and markets that are hyper-resilient around the world.
Yeah, again, thank you for that overview as well. And can you talk a bit about, I mentioned that you, in your prior role at Bats Global Markets, as well as upon joining Cboe, you were the Chief Information Officer. And I wonder if you could take a moment and reflect upon your time as CIO across 2 different organizations, how that prepared you for the aggrandizement of your responsibilities as you just described.
Yes, I've had the pleasure of working with amazing people throughout my 20 plus years in markets technology, which has been really the lion's share of my career. And I was one of the founding employees of Bats back in 2005, now 20 years ago. There were only 13 of us, and we were a very unknown firm. And we we knew what the most demanding customers in the US equities markets needed. So we created a platform and stood that up in about 6 months. And then we brought on investors and we grew quite rapidly from 2005 to 2017, where we eventually sold to Cboe. So we went from 13 people to 325 people. We went from one market to, I think, about 10 markets by the end of it. We expanded into Europe and FX and options. So I've had the pleasure, really the gift of being able to see growth from a startup of 13 employees to about 16 or 1700 employees today at Cboe, and have been on both sides of acquiring companies and integrating them, as well as being acquired and integrated into a company like Cboe. So I've been just really been gifted with those opportunities to see what works well, what doesn't work well, and what you need to worry about when you're a startup or a 100-person firm versus a 1,600-person firm, and running 27 markets versus one. And in many ways, there are pros and cons and fun things and not fun things about each stage. But scalability is somewhat easier when you're running a single market or two markets, but at 27 and around the world, and you can never go down. It's just a different level of rigor that thankfully I've been able to grow into with incredible people I work with over these last 20 years. So I think you learn something from all along the way. You also learn from what doesn't work so well. There have been times where systems have failed, and we learn something from that. We have a rigorous learning review process. We want to apply those lessons so that it doesn't occur again. So that's what we've learned. We want to make sure that the tuition we're paying for learning only gets paid once.
Well, speaking of challenges that you've overseen and necessity for resilience, you've also been a leader through the global financial crisis, the flash crash, of course, COVID, among other trying periods, to say the least. And I wonder if you could talk a bit about what each of those crises, you're not necessarily going through them one by one unless it's productive from your perspective to do so, but generally speaking, how you've thought about fostering greater resilience in the face of some of the challenges, exogenous challenges, of course, that impacted global markets, not just your organizations, but how you've thought about resilience in the face of some of these crises that impacted business.
Yeah, great question. So I think you build resilience not in a time of crisis, but you build resilience before the crisis, or you prepare for the crisis before the crisis occurs. And as I said, this is a technology-driven business. 27 markets, 26 of the 27 are entirely electronic. Only one of them has a floor. And so you build for the times that are going to be episodic, very, very large events. So, global financial crisis or the flash crash or COVID or whatever the crisis might be, you're likely to see multiples of traffic and volume and volatility than you might normally see in any given day. And so we test our systems, our platforms, to handle at least 2x what we've ever seen on the biggest day, and then even a higher multiple for shorter time frames, per second, per minute, per hour, etc. So that's on the platform side, but really resilience is a mindset. It's not just about platforms that are resilient or fault tolerant. We want to build teams around here that are resilient in the way we think about markets, so we can stay calm and collected and clear-minded during the most stressful of times. Because you need to make very quick decisions. Thankfully, nobody's life is on the line when systems fail, but there's livelihoods on the line, and we want to make sure the markets run incredibly well. So a resilience mindset with people, resilient platforms, also the processes we put in place. I mentioned the learning review process, very rigorous incident management. We want to learn lessons once and apply those learnings so that they don't happen again. And finally, the places in which we work. We're investing in offices around the world. I'm sitting in Kansas City in a new office. We think that in-person collaboration makes a big difference about the resilience of teams and building culture, but then can build even more resilient platforms and processes to help us grow.
Yeah, very interesting insights all. Really appreciate that. Speaking of your team, I would love to understand a bit more about how it's organized, given the span of responsibilities you have. Do you have teams that are essentially aligned to the different categories you just described? Are there other members of your team that cut across different aspects of what you lead as well? Talk a bit about how you organize your team, please.
You want to talk about the philosophy first, which is if we're running a global enterprise like this and different markets and regions, we want to operate globally consistent platforms that are locally optimized for that region or country to satisfy the local needs and regulatory requirements and delight customers. So that's the way we're organized. We have business lines, derivatives and data and access, or called data vantage. And then a cash and spot market. So global cash equities, FX, bids, and clearing falls into that. So the business lines, we have leaders of each of the business lines, and then we have leaders of each of the global functions, whether it's software engineering, operations, infrastructure, data analytics, et cetera, global functional model, and then business global leaders as well. But with the goal of having a globally consistent platform, which we call Titanium for all of our options, futures, and equities platforms, but locally optimized so that we can build something in one place, build it once, and we can deploy it many times around the world in a very seamless way.
And as you mentioned a couple different times appropriately, this is a very information-based company and organization. Data, therefore, is critical. Having access to it, ensuring that there's appropriate hygiene associated with it, governance, certainly security as well. Talk a bit about how you've thought about organizing your data. We'll get into some of the more advanced practices associated with data and analytics, but I'd love to get some of your foundational elements as to how you think about organizing it to ensure that you're able to access it and make better decisions based upon it.
Yeah, data is the fuel for markets, and we're a markets technology operator around the world. And so the data is what fuels those markets and the growth and the appropriate and efficient operation of the market. So it has to be accurate. It has to be timely. And our 27 markets, they generate an enormous amount of data every day. We have a trillion messages or so on the biggest days. So that has to be accurate, timely. That's the raw data coming off exchanges. And we commercialize that data and sell it because it's valuable to our customers. And then there's enhanced data as well that would provide insights to customers from derived data sets that we create that customers find useful in optimizing their trading strategies. So that's really what we think about when we talk about commercializing data and providing it to the market. We also have a tremendous amount of data internally, and we've built a unified data platform. It's running Snowflake on AWS, where all that data from our markets and different offerings goes into Snowflake on AWS. We run all sorts of analytics. That helps us drive our business, helps us have much more intelligent conversations with our customers about how their trading experience can improve on any one of our markets. And then from those insights, where we think it makes sense, we can provide anonymized data to customers as well. And I'll mention a couple other recent offerings we've come out with. We've come out with something called a timestamping service, where in this market, I mentioned timeliness. When I started 20 years ago, people were measuring in seconds, milliseconds from a trading perspective. And now they care deeply about nanoseconds, handful of nanoseconds. And so time is very important, and appropriate timestamps on data is vital. And so we've released a timestamping service that customers can subscribe to across our markets globally that better allows them to instrument how their trading experience has gone, to back test, and then to improve their trading strategy going forward. So we try to look at data holistically. We also try to provide it in the format or the distribution method that fits the need of that customer. Now, they may be connected to us in one of our data centers around the world, or they may just want to connect through a cloud provider or take data off of a website like Cboe Data Shop. So we want to provide it in the form they need, when they need it.
And talk about how advances in artificial intelligence have impacted what you've described as well. No doubt, and I know from our past conversations that a lot of investment in these areas also.
Yeah, artificial intelligence, especially generative AI, is changing the landscape of so many industries, and ours likewise. And really, artificial intelligence has been used in trading for quite some time. especially machine learning initially, and today's no different. It's transforming trading. As an exchange operator, it is primarily right now a productivity multiplier for us. So we formed an AI center of excellence last year. We've trained 1,200 plus of our associates on that AI platform that has gone along with AI Center of Excellence. It's part of every associate's goals here to further adopt and use generative AI. So we're using it across many, many use cases, from improving engineering productivity through things like copilots and whatnot, to improving the standardization of review of listing requirements for different ETPs or corporate listings that might want to list on one of our exchanges. That's historically been a very labor-intensive process that's highly legal-centric. And so things that are very focused on text, generative AI tends to be very, very good at. Those are just two examples. The examples really are endless of how it could improve our productivity. Where we see even greater opportunity in the long term is the commercialization of data, coming from the use of AI, where we're using it, it can provide insights that may not be obvious to our customers or to us, and that we're still in the nascent phases of that, but it's quite exciting given the trove of data we have as this global exchange operator, and having so many global customers that view the world globally, like us. We think we have a lot of value to provide them.
And talk about you as you mentioned at the outset, cybersecurity is an area of responsibility and naturally focus for you as well. And it's sort of the yang to the yin of a lot of what we've been talking about, and needs to be a foundational element to ensure that what you described can be delivered, in a timely and reliable fashion. It's a way to ensure the trust continues to be there. Talk a bit about the way in which you organize your cybersecurity practices to deliver what you've described as well, please.
Yeah, absolutely. It is vital. It's the number one enterprise risk for us as at Cboe Global Markets, and I assume almost every exchange operator around the world. It's an ever-present risk and something we're very focused on. But I'll actually start with kind of the use of AI within cybersecurity, because using that to identify patterns, to improve monitoring, et cetera, we've been using that for years, actually. And we're ramping up those efforts because the adversaries never sleep. The adversaries don't play by rules. The adversaries don't really care about those rules. So they're coming after us and others, and we have to remain vigilant. We operate a 24/7 SOC, Securities Operations Center, and we're investing in all the best tools. I would say the financial services industry globally as well, more specifically in the US, I think has done a pretty admirable job of collaborating across enterprises within different industries. So financial services, there's something called FSISAC and other organizations where CISOs and organizations collaborate on best practices. And there's a high level of regulation about what the standards are, what the best practices are around security, and a high level of internal, external regulatory audits around our security practices and hygiene. So this is an ever-present focus for us, from security associate all the way up to the board, as it needs to be. And we have employ some great talent here, and looking forward to the future, but have to remain focused on this risk. It's also very technically driven. You can't have a great information security practice without having world-class engineers. And so that's what we focus on, is how do we have world-class engineers running our security practice and platforms.
It makes a lot of sense. Can you talk a bit about, we've talked about a number of trends on the ascent, artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence perhaps being most prominent among those. What other trends are making their way onto your roadmap that you and the team are investigating, investing in perhaps? What comes to mind as areas of focus for you, or even in the medium to long term, as the case may be?
Yeah, I'll mention a couple. So first, on the AI front, not just generative AI for us, but the future is agentic. Agents are the buzzword now, but we are deploying agents across our enterprise, and really the number of agents we could create is endless. An example is, we have hundreds of firewalls around the world to ensure we have a great security practice. and keeping all those rules in place and on those firewalls to make sure we're secure yet still can do the work we need to do is not an easy thing to do manually. And so agents help us show where we might have holes or maybe need to open up holes in our network and provide exact configuration that we can apply. So that's just one example that's reduced the manual labor by 60 or 70% of how much work's needed there. So we see agents, more and more agents be deployed within our walls and across the industry as AI becomes more and more mature. Speaking of agents, I would say on the software engineering side of the house, it's not just the use of code snippets that are being recommended, but generating whole user interfaces with a prompt, from prompting a few prompts, and you have a workable prototype of a user interface. The growth of the tooling around this, using agents within software engineering Copilot is quite impressive. So the rapid prototyping can go from days and weeks down to actually, in some cases, minutes, which is quite exciting, the productivity multiplication. I'd say, cloud has been around for 15 years now or so. We use cloud pretty extensively. I would say that the maturation of the cloud for use within financial services and the most highly regulated areas has come of age in the last 5-ish years. And so we use cloud for our data platform, for Cboe Global Cloud data distribution network. And I see more and more of that. I do see a hybrid future, though. Like within our industry, no one's going to be completely cloud, nor are they probably going to be single cloud. They'll be hybrid, but they're going to use the best environment for the workload that might be going. I think also, as more and more things go to AI, last thing I'll mention is just the need for people remains, and culture is still paramount. That we want to have a culture that's full of humble, hungry, smart people that want to grow and could harness things like AI, can harness the latest trends, but it's dependent upon the great people we have.
That's fantastic. I'm a adherent to Patrick Lencioni's humble, hungry, and smart as well. I love that.
Yes.
Love that moniker. Chris, I also wanted to ask you, speaking of books, and perhaps that's one you've read, I wanted to ask you if there's anything you've recently read, watched, and or listened to that you would recommend to others, knowing that you are somebody who remains abreast of a lot of different topics, some of which we've featured today that constitute areas of innovation or curiosity. What are some of the things that you've been consuming of late that you might recommend?
Yeah, on the leadership front, I read almost anything that Patrick Lencioni writes. You mentioned, ideal team player, humble, hungry, smart, but it's been out for a while. The motive, I think, is wonderful. I think about servant-based leadership is vital. Something recently I finished is called Necessary Endings by Henry Cloud, more of a psychological book about, when do you say, okay, it's time to end something that hasn't worked out as well as it could have, and how important that is for our growth to not carry on things that may not be working. Then something I watched recently that's actually highly technical but super inspiring is Faith Kipyegon from, I believe, Kenya, tried to break the 4-minute mile. First woman to try to break the 4-minute mile. And there was a special on, I believe, Amazon Prime, 2 episodes. And I helped coach high school track. I was a college track athlete, decathlete, totally inspired by her attempt. She ended up running 4:06, which is incredible, an incredible time after she'd broken the world record, I believe, a year or two ago at 4:07. But the amount of technology that went into her race uniform, her shoes, all of the drafting behind the folks that were running around her, it was phenomenal. And just the level of training and precision that she had to go through in order to even get to that time was inspiring. So you see the intersection of technology. I think Nike sponsored it, but the intersection of technology and running and training is an area of cool interest, and technology's transformed our lives in many ways, can make it much better.
Well, fascinating and great recommendations all. Thank you so much for those descriptions of them, Chris. And thank you so much more broadly for a great conversation. It's wonderful to learn more about your career path, the various shapes it's taken and iterations, pathways to innovation, areas of focus for you, and areas of curiosity and excitement as you look to the future. It's been a great conversation. Thank you again.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Peter.